Hello students, today we are going to revise the unit 3 from web technology, that is server side technologies, and the contents for this unit 3 are introduction to server side technology and Tomcat. Then we will see servlet and all the things related to servlet, and the third main point will be JSP. So we'll start with the servlets. So first, directly starting before servers, we will see what is the difference between server side scripting and client side scripting. So we have seen this subject difference in deep in the class. So we'll just revise the points that are related to here, and the basic of comparison I have given the first column, and then we have differentiated the server side and client side scripting. So basically it has the server side scripting it works in the backend that could not be visible at the client end, and client side scripting is works at front end and that can be visible among the users. So while talking about processing, the server side scripting requires server interaction, while in the client side scripting does not require interaction with the server. And the languages involved can in the server side scripting include PHP, ASP.NET, Ruby, Ruby on Rails, Cold Fusion, Python, etc. And in client side scripting there are HTML, CSS, JavaScript, okay, all these languages. Then affect how that server side script affect, it could effectively customize the web pages and provide the dynamic websites, whereas client side scripting can reduce the load to the server. And if we are talking about security, server side scripting is relatively secure as compared to client side scripting. Then we have seen the Apache Tomcat. So what that Apache Tomcat was, and what are the steps to download, we have also seen in the practical session. Okay, so the Apache Tomcat is a web container which allows to run the servlet and JSP, that is Java Server Pages based web applications, and most of the modern Java web frameworks are based on the servlets. For example, Java Server, Faces, Structs, Spring. So all these things are related to Apache Tomcat. So then what are the servlets that we have seen? The Java servlets are the programs that run on a web or applications and application server, and it can act as a middle layer between a request coming from a web browser or the other HTTP client and database, or the applications on the HTTP server. So using servlets, you can collect input from users through web page forms and present records from a database or another source, and also create the web pages dynamically. Then we have seen the advantages of servlets, and that we have gone through the performance, performance is significantly better in the servlet, and servlets are platform independent because they are written in Java. Then servlets are trusted, and the full functionality of Java class libraries is available to the servlet. So these advantages are asked for 2 marks, and the common gateway interface that we have seen, this CGI is a common gateway interface, and the diagrammatically we can see a CGI shell. It is taking the request, and it is dividing that request into CGI shell, and then it is uh, there is CGI program. So there are many problems in CGI technology, because if number of clients increases, it takes more time for sending the response, and for each request it starts a process, and the web server is limited to start the process. And it uses the platform dependent language as well, that is C, C++, Perl, etc. Okay, so because of that, the processor is under heavy load, and so servlets are always better than CGI. Okay. So what servlet will do, it will create a thread for each request, and then all these thread will go to the servlet. Okay, so that it can give the better performance, portability, robust and securing features. Then we have seen the servlets architecture. There are four main components: web browser, HTTP server, servlets program and database. So the Java servlets, like we will see in the request, and the request will be like from the web browser, like the whatever request is sent, that request will be searched in the database via the servlets program, and the again it is sent to the HTTP server, and then to the web browser, so that the required output can be achieved. So all these things are going into effective way. And talking about servlet packages, we use javax.servlet and javax.servlet.http package that can be created to run by a web server that has an interpreter, and it also supports the Java servlet specification. So these packages we can use into our coding as well. Then we have seen the servlet's life cycle. In that there are basically the methods init, service and destroy. Okay, so the init method, it instantiates the process, and this method is called only once, and it is called only when the servlet is created, and not called for any user request afterwards. Then the service method, this service method is the main method to perform the actual tasks, and the servlet container, that is web server, calls the service method to handle requests that are coming from a client browser, and to write the formatted response back to the client. And when a server receives a request for servlet, the service method checks the HTTP request type, that is whether it is get or post, and calls that do get, do post methods as per appropriation. Okay, so that can be uses like public void services, that is servlet request, servlet request response, throws servlet exception or IO exception. So that is the signature of that service method. Then do get method. So a get request result from a normal request for a URL or from an HTML form that has no method specified, and it should be handled by do get method. So that public void do get you can use like HTTP servlet request, its object will be request, and HTTP servlet response, the object is response. Throws servlet exception, IO exception, and whatever code lines you want to write, you can write inside servlet code. So, and do post method, a post method, it is the request result from an HTML form that specifically lists post as the method, and it should be handled by do post method. So it is having similar syntax like public void do post, and with the object HTTP servlet request, its object will be request, and same for the HTTP servlet response, and it throws the servlet exception and IO exception, and whatever the servlet code, it goes in the parenthesis. Then the destroy method. The destroy method is called only once at the end of life cycle of a servlet, and this method gives your servlet a chance to close the database connection. And this destroy method is used as public void destroy. Okay, and you can write that finalization code here. Then the servlet architecture we have seen. In architecture we have seen that the first is HTTP request coming to the server, then it is delegated to the server container, how that container loads the servlet before invoking the service method, and this architecture is having that life cycles methods as well. Just read and listen it carefully. So the servlet container loads the servlet before invoking the service method, and then the servlet container handles multiple requests by spawning the multiple threads. You can see there are many threads, and servlet container is there. Okay. So it is calling to init method, then there are multiple threads for each request, and then they are calling the service method, and after that the multiple threads, then each thread is executing the service method of single instance of the servlet, and after that this destroy method can be used. Okay, and next was the software requirements that can use to run with the servlet and servlet classes. So before running servlet, your machine requires some tools, that is Eclipse and Tomcat. So Eclipse is the IDE, integrated development environment, and Tomcat is a web server. So these two things must be present to run servlet on our machine. Okay, so that steps I have shown you. So, and deeply we have also seen this all the steps. Okay, so that Tomcat server is open source Java servlet container that was developed by Apache Software Foundation, and we have seen the components of that Tomcat, then each component, what each component is made for, and what function it is performing. So all these things we have seen, like Tomcat components like Coyote and Jasper. Okay, so Jasper is the Tomcat's JSP engine. Coyote is the connector component, while the components whatever we have seen, like a cluster also, they are added from Tomcat 7.0 version, and the cluster high availability and web application. So all these things are also under components of Tomcat. Then how to configure Tomcat server in Eclipse, that is one time requirement only, that we have seen. Like if you are using Eclipse IDE first time, you need to configure the Tomcat server first. Okay, and for that just following some steps will be better, like click on server tab, and bottom side of the IDE just right click on the blank area, new servers, close, choose Tomcat, then its version, then next click on browse button, select the Apache Tomcat root folder, and it should be selected to bin, then next, and all, add all, and finish. So these things you can see, okay, in the forms that also I have shown you. Okay, so Apache folder is there, you can see, then Tomcat version, that is 7.0 server. After that you need to click on next, and browser that particular file, that is Apache Tomcat, to your Eclipse ID. Okay, that you are doing, and after that just adding, click on finish. So after that you can see the Tomcat version server at the localhost message. Okay, and after this, following all these steps, you are good to run your servlet in Eclipse. So for running that servlet in Eclipse, you need to create a dynamic web project, then create a servlet, add servlet -api.jar and run that servlet file. So creating a dynamic web project, for that you need to go into the file menu, new, and in dynamic web page project. After that just create the dynamic web page, give any name whatever you like to, here it is given just a simple first name. Okay, then creating it, you have to add on next, then generate that web.xml deployment descriptor and finish. After that you can see at the left side of your panel there will be the folders, so many folders that are related with your web project. Then for creating servlet you need that a new servlet, and after that you have to provide your class name, then next, and after creating just go on adding the next and after you can finish the project servlet creation. Then servlet is created and you are good you can write to code now. So that code also we can see in the example. Okay, so these are very easy steps, but just while configuring the elements like Tomcat and IDE also, that is our Eclipse IDE, just keep your mind very well settled. Okay, after that adding servlet api.jar file, you need to add these files with the build path and configuring build path. Then you will add the external jars and whatever jar you need to add. So servlet.-api.jar is a very needy servlet file that should be added into your project, that is dynamic web project. And after final step, that is running the servlet. So for running the servlet, just right click on your project name and click run as such, and after that you need to run it on the server so that it can be executed, and after that just next and finish, you are good to go with the code. Now we'll see, we have seen the sample code as well. So the sample code we can see like for printing hello world. Okay, so all the packages we can see we have added: import java.io.star, import javax.servlet, then import javax.servlet.http. okay, and all the code is written in the well set manner, and you can see the message we have provided is hello world. Okay, and now we need to get the output. Okay, so just we have used that pass that message, and after following all the steps for running as well, you can write your code and build your project. Then that get parameter, so you can call that get parameter method to get the value of from parameter. Then get parameter values This method can be used to if the parameter appears more than once and returns multiple values, and get parameter names. So this method you want to complete list of parameters in the current request. So all these things should be used properly as per your requirement in the project. Then we have seen the third example for reading data from HTML file and printing it. So it requires two files, that is HTML and servlet file. So the HTML file we have named as s1.html and s2 as s2.java for servlet file. So for that, first run that HTML file, and after clicking on submit button it will run the servlet, that is java .java file. And this example, the HTML files code is given, and servlet code is also given here. So do post and request get parameters method we have used. Okay, so t1 here we have used as text name, that we have used here as well. Okay, for get parameter. Then for then we have seen the fourth example, that was the HTML code, and for reading that data from HTML checkbox values we need to print those as well. Okay, so that form method we have used, that form method post and action as s1, so that s1 is name of your servlet file. Okay, and we have added that all this code, and after that the remaining code also we have completed. So after completing all that code, and for printing the complete list of all the parameters, we have gone through the servlets code. Okay, and there also we have set that content type, like response.set content type to text or HTML, and written that print statement, that is print writers out, and then we have also used that enumeration e type for getting your parameter names, and after that the objects and next element, so that it can print all the elements that we have used here. Okay, so this code we have executed successfully, and it is very good example. It might show the lengthy process, but all the things that we have discussed till now, that all are contained in this example. So that was a successful execution. And then we have gone through the session management. So this session tracking and session management is a way to maintain the state or data of an user, and it is also known as the session management in servlet. And the HTTP protocol is a stateless, so we need to maintain that state using session tracking technique. And the sessions we have also seen in the fourth and fifth unit in detail, so that can also be revised once you are preparing. So each time when user requests to a server, the server treats that request as a new request, and so that we need to maintain the state of an user to recognize to the particular user. And why we use the session tracking? To recognize the user. So it is used for recognizing the particular user, because it is providing ID to each user who is always searching for anything via the browser. Okay, then the session tracking techniques we have seen, in that the cookies, hidden form field, URL rewriting, and HTTP session we have used. So session tracking using cookies. So what this session tracking does, actually A cookie is a small piece of information that is persisted between the multiple client requests. So a cookie has a name, a single value, and optional attributes such as comment, path, domain qualifier. So how that cookie works actually in the session management, the in cookies technique we add cookie with a response from the servlet. So cookie is stored in a cache of browser, and after that if request is sent by the user, cookie is added with request by default. Okay, and thus we recognize the user as the old user. Okay, so what it is doing, it is just stored in the cache of browser, and whenever the request is sent by the user, cookie is added with the request by default, so that the request can be identified. And if it is closed, means you can also deny this access, so that it will not be identified, but there are so many techniques that user can be identified from the browser side. Okay, then we have seen that types of cookies that are non-persistent and persistent cookies. So non-persistent cookie, it is a valid single session only. Okay, as the session is completed, it will be destroyed automatically. Okay, and the persistent cookie, it is valid for multiple sessions, and it is not removed each time, but it can be removed only if user log out or sign out. So these are the types of cookies that we have seen. Then we have seen the advantages, like it is the simplest technique to maintain the state as told, because just it is sending the id, and with the request again the that id or that cookie is sent to the browser, so that the user can be identified. So these are advantages, but disadvantages, like it will not work if cookie is disabled. As told, you can disable it. So if the cookie is disabled from the browser side, you will not be able to see, and only textual information can be set in a cookie object. That is the second disadvantage. So we have also gone through the methods of cookie class, that are set max age, and string get name, string get value, then set name, set values. Okay, so all these useful things we have seen with the cookies. Then for creating cookie, just we need to cookie ck equals to new cookie, that is for creating cookie object, and user, and that user value, name value you can add. For deleting, you need to use that same thing, just we need to remove that element or remove that name. Here you can see for creating you have added that name Sonu, and for deleting we have put that value as blank. So all these things we have seen in the session tracking. Okay, and simple example also we have seen with the servlet cookies. Okay, and with example we have got as output as well, like all these things, like importing that java packages that are same in all the programs, and means this session tracking programs, and we have just added that objects only. Okay, that request object, response object, and whatever the contents that are only changed in each program. Okay, so examples also we have seen for hello, and then we have seen another technique of session tracking, that was hidden form field. So the hidden form field, in case of hidden form field, a hidden or any invisible text field is used for maintaining the state of an user, and in this case we store the information in hidden field and get it from another servlet. So in this session tracking, uname is the hidden field, and the example as we are talking about. Okay, so you can see here the uname is the hidden field, and bhavna, we have provided the name bhavna, so it is the hidden field value. Okay, so in hidden form fields, that invisible text field is used for maintaining state of the user. Okay, so this bhavna is a hidden field value that can be used for storing that information. Okay, and advantages of this hidden field form field are, it will always work whether cookie is disabled or not. And if you are talking about disadvantages, it is maintained at server side, and so the extra form submission is required on each page. And again, like simple cookies, only textual information can be used. So passing username example, we have seen like a name, password, submit. So first submit, second we need to means here the second name is hidden. Okay, so we have also seen the example for same. Then we have seen the URL rewriting technique of session tracking. So if the client has disabled cookies in browser, then session management using cookie, it won't work. So in that case, URL rewriting can be used as backup. And so on this technique also we have seen. Okay, and for URL rewriting, we have seen the example like the token consists of name, value pair, and then the token is added at the end of URL. Okay, so that you can see. And the token consists of name or value pair that is separated by equal to sign. Okay, so you can see here in the URL there are values, and it is separated with the equal to sign. So this technique also we have seen with example and its advantages and disadvantages. And lastly, we have seen that HTTP session, and this servlet container uses that interface to create a session between HTTP client and an HTTP server. So the session persists for a specified time period across more than one connection or page request from the user, and you would get HTTP session object by calling public method getSession. And this method is of HTTP servlet request. And how to call it? That syntax like with the HTTP session, create that object session and request.getSession. Okay, and how to get that HTTP session object with the getSession method. And commonly used methods we have also seen like string getID method, public long get creation time, public long get last access time, public void invalidate. Okay, so all these things we have seen with the HTTP session, and the example also we have seen with HTML file. Then and it was having output like we have counted that hit count example for that session, and it will show you the hits after clicking on get hits button. Okay, so you can see in the output it is providing that session ID, session creation time, then time of that time of last access and latest hit count as well. Okay, so all these things we have seen in the session tracking. And then talking about JSP, that is Java Server Pages. So in JSP also we have seen many contents like introduction to JSP, advantages of JSP over servlet, then JSP life cycle, JSP creation in Eclipse, and JDBC connectivity with JSP. And before that we have seen the elements of JSP page. So JSP is a technology that is used to create web applications like your servlet technology, and it can be thought of as an extension to servlet because it provides more functionality than the servlet, such as expression, language, JSTL, etc. And JSP page consists of HTML tags and JSP tags. So we have seen all these things. Then we have gone through advantages of JSP versus active server pages, that is JSP versus ASP, and JSP versus JavaScript. So talking about ASP, the advantage of JSP are twofold. That is, first, the dynamic part is written in Java, that is not a Visual Basic or other MS specific language, so that it is more powerful and easier to use. And second, it is portable to other OS and non-Microsoft web servers as well. Then talking about JavaScript as compared to JSP, so that JSP and the JavaScript. So the JavaScript can generate HTML dynamically on the client, but it can hardly interact with the web server to perform the complex tasks like database access and image processing. So these things we have seen in detail and with example also, and in JSP over servlet we have gone through these points like extension to servlet, then how it is easy to maintain, how it is faster in development, and less code is used than servlet. Okay, so all these things we have seen. After that we have started that JSP life cycle. So JSP pages follows the phases like translation of JSP page, compilation of JSP page, class loading, instantiation, initialization, request processing, and destroy methods. Okay, so all these things we have seen, like here with the example, like JSP pages are converted into servlet by the web container, and the container translates that JSP page into a servlet, that is class source dot into .java file. Okay, here you can see it is translated to Java, and after that it is compiled to JSP classes, and then it is again loaded as servlet, that is first JSP servlet. So this is the life cycle of JSP, and we have seen all these phases step by step. Okay, so like when a browser asks for JSP, the JSP engine first checks to see whether it needs to compile the page. So that is the first JSP compilation phase. So the compilation process involves parsing the JSP, turning the JSP into servlet, and compiling the servlet. Then these steps we have seen, like JSP initialization and execution, cleanup. Okay, and then we have gone through the JSP creation in Eclipse. Now we want to add that JSP into our Eclipse IDE. So what we will do, in last session we have added that Eclipse IDE and Tomcat Apache. Okay, so now for adding and creating JSP page, a JSP page looks similar to an HTML page, but JSP page also has Java code in it. So we can put any regular Java code in JSP file using the scriptlet tag, and that scriptlet tag will start with opening angle bracket, percentile sign, and it also ends with percentile and then closing angle bracket. So this is the syntax of your JSP page, and JSP pages are used to develop dynamic responses. So for creating JSP you will need to open Eclipse, just click on new and dynamic web project. Its steps are like your first page only, that Tomcat and dynamic web page creation. then give it the name of project and click on OK, and you will see new project created in the project explorer. Okay. Then to create a new JSP file, just right click on the web content directory and a new JSP file, and you can create a JSP page. So file name here is given as hello, and after giving name you can just click on finish. So we can write anything whatever you want in the JSP file, and that in the given code format, and the complete HTML and JSP code goes inside the body tag, just like your HTML pages. And then for executing or for running that project, just right click on project, select that run as and run on server, and to start the server, choose existing server name and click on finish. Okay, so here it is only one server, so it is shown, but if there are multiple you can choose any of the list. Okay, so this is about creating a JSP page, and you are good to see the output, that is welcome user. Then we have seen the elements that are used in JSP page, that were directives, comments, scripting elements, actions and templates. So the scripting elements we have seen. For comment we will write scriptlet, and with double dash the comment is given. If you want to include directives, we will add that add the directive in this code snippet or the JSP scriptlet. Then for declaration we will just use that exclamatory mark after enabling your declaration, and for adding scriptlet, just scriptlet symbol, that is opening angle bracket and percentile, and for adding expression you need to add equal to symbol. Okay, so these elements should be added in your JSP page, and examples we have seen. For comment you can use that double dash sign, and the scriptlet, okay, we have seen all the examples for each element. Okay. So then JSP directives. Okay. So the JSP directive affects the overall structure of servlet class, and it usually has the form like that a directive attribute and value. Okay, so there are three types of directive tags basically. So first tag, that is with the scriptlet at page and dash, so that defines the page dependent attribute such as scripting language, error page and buffering requirements. Second type, that is at include, it includes file during the translation phase. And third, at tag lib, it declares a tag library containing the custom actions that are used in page. Now we have seen all the directives, like the attributes of JSP page directive, they are given as the value, then import content type, extends into buffer language, is EL ignored, then is thread safe, auto flush, session, page encoding, error page, is error page. So all these things we have seen. Then the JSP page directive, then actions, and all this syntax also we have gone through. Then there are syntax and purpose for JSP actions, like what that include do, that includes the file at time of page is requested, then how to use that JSP bean or use bean. It will find an instantiate Java bean. Okay, so all these things we have used and we have gone through. Then JSP include, then JSP include without parameter. These things we have seen with the help of example also. So forward action tag, it is used to forward the request to another resource. It may be JSP, HTML or any another resource. Then without parameter also we can use it. So that thing also we have seen with the example. Okay, you can see we haven't given any parameter here, we have directly used it. Then with parameter, here you can see we have used that code of forward page and given the printed.jsp as of your file name, and parameters name we have added, that is name and value as Bhavna. So with parameter and without parameter, all these things also we have seen with example. Then JSP use bin, that Java beans according to the Java white paper, it is a reusable software component, and a bin encapsulates many objects into one object. So we can access these objects from multiple places, and moreover it provides the easy maintenance. So simple example also we have seen with use bin and Java bin, and how to access that Java bin class, that we have seen with the example. Okay. In example also we can see the object creation and setting some value to the user, to the object that is given here. Then JSP templates we have seen in the examples required for it, and the last point we have started with was JDBC. So the JDBC connectivity, and what that JDBC is. So Java JDBC is a Java API that is used to connect and execute query with the database. And JDBC API uses JDBC drivers to connect with the database. So before JDBC, ODBC API was the database API to connect and execute query with the database. So all these things with JDBC and JDBC driver we have seen. So JDBC driver is having 4 types, like JDBC ODBC bridge driver, native API driver, then a network protocol driver, and thin driver. Okay. We have gone through the connectivity part, like we have seen the connectivity requirement. That's in software requirement we will need one MySQL connector, that is jar file, Apache Tomcat server, and Eclipse. Then copy MSQL connector jar files into Tomcat bin and lib folder. And before running the program, just right click on the project name, build path, configure path, and then libraries, add external jar file mysql.jar dot dash file dash ok. So all these connectivity steps we have seen, creating tables and rows in database. Okay, for that we have used that insert data function like MySQL array, then insert into nth values 100 comma Zara. So these things will add up the code lines into your output and program. So JSP code in Eclipse, so steps that we have seen like file, new and web dynamic web project. Again we have to create that project and right click on project name, new package, give package name for writing the JSP code. So follow all these steps for running that JSP code in the Eclipse, and after that we need to run as server. So the example we have seen of a JSP code to select data from a table, okay, and with the code only we have used some another example, that is for inserting data in employee table and display that inserted data from the table. So for that we have used second example, and with that we have revised our unit 3 contents. Okay, so hope that you have executed this code on your system as well, because there are so many days now that I have taught you these codes that are related to JSGBC and JSP, and they are very easy. Some of them we have covered in the practical sessions as well. Just thing to tell you guys is just revise all these things and revise all these 3 units also, and try to execute, and just if it is not possible to execute on system, just get idea from all these video sessions, or you can also use that references I have given in the last slide, and just try to execute, and keep in mind all this code and all these points. Okay, so this is about unit 3. Okay, so just revise the things once again, I'm telling. And thank you.